Thick fog blanketed the pine-shaded roads of Redwood Falls, turning everything into ghostly shadows. Ben Carter, a bus driver with salt and pepper hair and pensive eyes, steered bus number 12 onto Hillridge Pass, the final stretch before Redwood Elementary. The diesel engine rumbled steadily, like a heartbeat, blending with the soft murmur of the children inside the cabin. Through the windows, golden-orange autumn leaves streaked by like blurred flames, adding a touch of warmth to a morning that seemed ordinary. But as Ben glanced ahead, his eyes suddenly narrowed. Emerging from the mist were two figures, not human, but two massive German shepherds, their muscular frames taut, their gazes sharp as knives. They stood blocking the road, clad in jet-black K9 vests, motionless as living statues. Ben slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the damp pavement. The children jolted to a stop, their chatter and laughter dying instantly, replaced by rapid breaths in the cramped space. The two dogs, Rex and Max, legendary K9s of Cascade County, didn't belong here. No schedule, no handler, no sign explained their eerie presence. Rex, with his sleek black coat and a white patch on his left paw, took a step forward, letting out a low, guttural growl, a warning straight from the depths. Max, his dark brown fur framing piercing eyes, stood still, but his stare locked onto the undercarriage of the bus, as if piercing through metal to seek something hidden. Ben gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles widening. He'd driven this route for 15 years, through blizzards, dense fog, even wildfire smoke, but never had a chill run down his spine like this. "Why'd we stop?" A small voice piped up from the third row. Emily Whitaker, a 10-year-old with a ponytail and bright, curious eyes, stepped forward, clutching a thick science book. "There are two police dogs on the road," Ben replied, forcing a calm tone and a strange smile. "They're probably just lost." But he knew it was a lie. Rex and Max didn't get lost. They were precision-trained machines, veterans of dozens of major cases, from drug busts to homemade bombs. And now they stood here, blocking the path of a bus carrying 25 children. He tapped the horn lightly, hoping they'd move aside. Rex flinched, ears perking up, but didn't budge. Max answered with a deeper growl, then stepped forward, claws raking hard against the front bumper. The sound of metal screeching pierced the air like a declaration of war. The kids stirred, some pressing their faces to the windows, whispering, "That's Rex! From last week's show!" Ben's mind flashed back. Yes, just last week, at the school courtyard, Rex and Max had demonstrated their explosive detection skills, leaving the crowd in awe. But that day, they'd had a handler leashes. Not now. They were here alone, and that realization made Ben's heart pound. Something was terribly wrong. Just a few minutes later, the situation escalated rapidly. Emily, with the quick wit of a bright child, had already called her mother, Principal Dana Whitaker. Soon after, a dusty blue SUV roared up, its tires crunching over the gravel. Dana stepped out, her high heels clicking sharply against the pavement, her face paling as she caught sight of the two dogs. Right behind her, Sheriff Paul Harris's vehicle pulled in, its lights flashing silently without the wail of a siren. He stepped down, jaw clenched, hand resting on the holstered gun, his keen eyes scanning the scene. "Ben!" Dana called, her voice trembling. "Are those Rex and Max?" Ben replied, stepping off the bus, his tone heavy as stone. "And they won't move?" Harris approached slowly, as if afraid to shatter the tense atmosphere. "Where's their handler?" "Nowhere," Ben said. "No leash, no vehicle, nothing." Rex suddenly let out a sharp bark, then resumed his stance in front of the bumper, chest puffed out like a warrior. Max didn't even glance at the adults, his gaze fixed on the bus's undercarriage, nostrils flaring as if sensing something invisible to everyone else. "Something's off," Harris muttered, his voice low like distant thunder. "They're trained to detect threats. If they're here, acting like this, they're not lost, they're warning us." Dana's eyes widened. "You think they've found something?" Harris didn't answer immediately. He stepped back and spoke into his radio. "This is Harris. Send the bomb squad to Hillridge Pass now." Bus number 12 might be compromised. Lock down the area? Inside the bus, the kids had now sensed the abnormality, their faces pressed against the windows, eyes wide. Emily stood at the door, watching everything with an oddly calm demeanor. Evacuate? Ben asked, his voice hoarse with strain. Not yet, Harris replied, his eyes never leaving the dogs. Let's see what they're telling us. If they're right, rushing could make things worse. Before long, the faint wail of sirens echoed in the distance. Patrol cars, unmarked SUVs, and even a nearby fire truck rolled in, setting up a perimeter at both ends of the road. Rex remained in the center, shoulders squared, still as a statue. Max circled to the side of the bus, sitting down but alert, nostrils twitching, eyes narrowed. Something beneath the bus held their unwavering attention. Get the kids out, Dana said softly, her hands clenching into fists to hide their trembling. Ben nodded and climbed back aboard. Listen up, everyone, he said, his voice gentle but firm. We're doing a safety drill. Leave your things, stay calm, and head to the far field. The children obeyed, stepping off in silence, their confusion marked only by hushed whispers. Officers guided them across the grass to a fence near the community soccer field. Dana took Emily's hand, casting an anxious glance back at the bus. Ben was the last to disembark, catching Rex's gaze as the dog turned back to the undercarriage, as if saying, We've got this, but stay away. Parents began gathering at the perimeter, alerted by frantic texts and calls. They stood in silence, their worried eyes fixed on the scene. Near the bus, the air grew heavy, like the calm before a storm. 2 state troopers arrived, bringing a compact bomb disposal robot. The machine rolled silently toward bus number 12, its lights blinking, mechanical arm extending. Ben stood beside Harris and asked, Anything? Not yet, Harris replied, his voice deep. But they're not guessing. They've smelled something, explosives, chemicals, or electronics. Max stood up, pacing along the bus, then stopped at the rear wheel and barked once, short and sharp as a blade. Rex clawed hard at the metal on the opposite side, the grating sound cutting through the fog. Dana hugged Emily tighter, whispering, Why are they here? How did they get out of their kennel? The robot reached the bus's underside, its camera panning slowly. A trooper spoke into his headset, then turned to Harris. We've got something. Under the rear axle, magnetic, looks complex. No one spoke. The air seemed to freeze. Harris ordered, Expand the perimeter 300 feet. No one gets close. The crowd stepped back, murmurs rippling through them. What began with 2 dogs on the road had now become a real bomb threat. Bomb technicians worked swiftly but cautiously, their protective suits glinting under the faint light piercing the fog. The robot removed a panel from the device. No explosion. Inside wasn't a bomb, but a USB drive, just wires, circuits, and a secret waiting to be unveiled. Lieutenant Grace Molina, a petite woman with eyes sharp as steel, plugged the USB into a laptop at the mobile command post. Harris, Dana, and Ben gathered around, their breaths shallow. The video flickered to life. A man in his 60s, with disheveled silver hair, sat at a cluttered workbench. White text appeared at the bottom of the frame. Harold Kelly, former chief mechanic, Redwood Falls School District. By the time you see this, he said, his voice gravelly but steady, you've found the device under bus number 12. It's not a bomb. It was never meant to hurt anyone. A younger man, Mason Kelly, appeared beside him, wringing his hands, his voice shaky. I helped my dad build it. Harold continued, 2 years ago, I discovered cracks in the frame of bus number 12, right near the fuel tank. I inspected it, took photos, submitted reports. But the school district didn't want to hear it. They said I was exaggerating, trying to force a bigger budget. They fired me, labeled me a lunatic. Mason cut in. Last month, a bus in the next county nearly lost its brakes going downhill, full of kids. Same structural flaw. They covered it up. Harold nodded, his eyes darkening. We couldn't wait any longer. We built this device, made it look dangerous, but it doesn't explode. Just circuits, a GPS, and this message. We installed it late last week, after the K9 demonstration. The dogs barked, maybe it was the glue. They remembered the scent and tracked the bus here. The video cut off. The truth hit like a thunderbolt. But the story didn't end there. Harris frowned, turning to Molina. If it's not a bomb, why'd they react so strongly? Glue wouldn't trigger K9 instincts like that. Molina nodded, her eyes still glued to the screen. There's more to it. They didn't just smell glue, they sensed real danger. Harris ordered the bomb squad to recheck the bus, this time more thoroughly. The robot returned to the undercarriage, its cameras zooming in. A technician shouted, "Hold it! There's something else, it's not Kelly's device." Beneath layers of cake dust and oil, a smaller object emerged, a metal box, wires protruding, a faint red light blinking weakly. It wasn't Harold's handiwork, this was a real bomb, hidden deeper, smaller, but powerful enough to obliterate the entire bus. The air froze. "Who put it there?" Dana whispered, clutching Emily tightly. Harris gritted his teeth. "Not Kelly. This is someone else's doing." The bomb squad sprang into action, the robot delicately disarming the detonator. A soft click sounded as the bomb was neutralized, but the question lingered, who had done this, and why? While the school district scrambled to inspect their entire fleet, uncovering 4 more buses with similar cracks, Harris launched an urgent investigation. Rex and Max, now unrestrained, still wouldn't leave the bus, as if they knew the danger hadn't fully passed. The next day, a clue surfaced. Sergeant Tom Given, the K9 handler, found that Rex and Max's kennel had been tampered with from the inside, not an escape, but a deliberate release. Security footage near the police station showed a shadowy figure in the night, clad in a hoodie, holding wire cutters. Whoever it was knew Rex and Max would find the bus, Harris muttered. But why let them loose? Ben, standing nearby, suddenly spoke up. Maybe he wanted us to find it, not the bomb, but the cracks. The bomb was just a distraction. The story spread through Redwood Falls like wildfire. Some believed Harold and Mason were reluctant heroes, others suspected they were more deeply involved. But as the investigation followed the trail, a horrifying truth emerged: the bomb wasn't random. A former maintenance worker from the school district, fired around the same time as Harold, had been nursing a silent grudge. He planted the bomb to frame Harold, all while concealing the fact that he himself had ignored the cracks in the buses for years to cut maintenance costs. Rex and Max, with their uncanny instincts, hadn't just uncovered Harold's decoy device, they'd sniffed out a real threat no one had anticipated. A week later, at a school assembly, Dana stood on stage with Rex and Max beside her, their honorary badges gleaming. "They didn't just save a bus," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "They saved our town from a dark conspiracy. No orders, no hesitation, they acted while we humans were still blind." The room erupted in applause. Ben stood at the back of the crowd, his eyes misting over, recalling the moment Rex had looked at him, as if saying, "We saw it all." The next morning, Ben parked the new bus at the depot, his hand brushing the front bumper where Rex had once stood. That afternoon, Rex and Max lounged under a maple tree, surrounded by laughing students. Ben knelt beside them, whispering, "You didn't just smell danger. You saw the truth." Max nuzzled his hand, while Rex gazed at him with deep, knowing eyes. A breeze swept through, carrying the sound of children's laughter. Redwood Falls carried on, but the memory of 2 silent guardians, transcending instinct, touching the miraculous, would forever remain a legend.